and welcome back to my channel. It's Tony back again with another video, and today I'm going to be doing a review of the first in the trilogy by Suzanne Collins called The Hunger Games. Now, The Hunger Games was a book that I came across on Goodreads a few years back, and I just became obsessed with it. I read the entire series in a week. And by the time I was kind of the third day into reading, I went into work and I was blurry-eyed and I had bags under my eyes and everybody was saying, you know, what's going on? You've been distracted the last few days. And I said, I've been reading this book and I don't go to bed because I'm reading them. And I got my entire team involved in reading. And one of my friends, May, got her husband, who's also a friend of mine called Gab, she got him reading it as well, and he's not like a voracious reader the way May and I are, but he basically became obsessed with these books as well, and that is how good these books were, because they got everybody across all walks of life kind of engrossed in the story. So it's a young adult fiction book set in a dystopian, what I would presume to be future America. So as per usual, I'm going to read you a bit of the plot. Then I'm going to tell you what I liked about the book and what I didn't like about the book, if anything, who my favorite characters were, and my rating for the book. So here we go. Could you survive on your own in the wild with everyone out to make sure you don't live to see the morning? In the ruins of a place once known as North America lies the nation of Panem, a shining capital surrounded by 12 outlying districts. The capital is harsh and cruel and keeps the districts in line by forcing them to send one boy and one girl between the ages of 12 and 18 to participate in the annual Hunger Games. 16-year-old Katnis Everdeen, who lives alone with her mother and younger sister, regards it as a death sentence when she is forced to represent her district in the Hunger Games. But Katnis has been close to death before, and survival is her second nature. Without really meaning to, she becomes a contender. She will have to start making choices that weigh survival against humanity and life against love. So that's actually a very fitting synopsis of this book, but it doesn't really get you to the meat and potatoes of what's going on here. So basically, in the nation of Panem, there are 12 districts, districts 1 through to 12. Yeah, 12 districts. So the capital is District 1. And then the surrounding districts, 2, 3, 4, like the closer you are to the capital, the more wealth your district seems to have. And Katniss comes from District 12, which is like the poorest district. And I think that they are miners. So each district has a speciality that they contribute to the nation of Panem. So you have the miners that contribute coal or whatever it is. You have like the district that does farming, so they produce a lot of grain. There's a district that produces timber and so on and so forth, and they all kind of supply their wares to the capital, and then it gets redistributed amongst everybody else in what's supposed to be a fairer distribution system, kind of like what you would think communism would look like if it actually worked. However, like the real communism, the distribution is unfair and unequal. So, and to top it off, the capital also, the president of the capital, who is the president of everybody, but President Snow, also demands that every year each district supplies a boy and a girl who are going to participate in a game called the Hunger Games, which is televised live. And in the Hunger Game, basically like they kill each other off, and the last man standing, the survivor, is given all the wealth that he or she would ever want in life and doesn't have to participate in future Hunger Games. So The Hunger Games itself kind of reminds me of Logan's Run. So basically, Katniss is living with her mum and her sister. Her father has passed away in a mining accident some years earlier. So Katniss became the main breadwinner for her family because her mother kind of checked out because she had depression and wasn't functional after her husband had passed away. So Catherine took on the responsibility of providing food and sustenance for the family, and also looking after her younger sister, Prudence. So she does this by hunting and selling her kills to people within District 12 to make a bit of money to buy grain and whatever else she needs, and then anything else that she needs, she kind of hunts basically. And she is friends with this young man called Gale. And Gale Hawthorne is basically like her hunting partner, and he also comes from a family where he is the main breadwinner. I think his family, he has like 12 siblings or something like that. So whatever they get from the capital is not enough to feed all of them. So he has to do additional things and goes hunting with Katniss. And then they form like a strange kind of friendship where it's like almost like a developing romance, but then they're friends at the same time. So, you know, you're not quite sure. There's a lot of kind of romantic suspense in the air between Gale and Katniss. So anyway, the annual Hunger Games comes about, and Katniss's younger sister Prue just turns 12 that year. So it's her first time actually being entered into the Hunger Games. And Gale, because like, I think for every entry, your family gets like an extra bag of grain or something. So Gale has put his name into the nominations like over a dozen times because he has such a large family to feed. So there is like this sense of suspense throughout the whole selection period in District 12, where you're thinking that Gale for sure is going to get picked because of the number of times he's entered his name in. So you're kind of there sitting on, you know, the edge of your seat, kind of anticipating, are they going to call Gale's name anytime now? And then they make the first announcement and they call out the first girl, and the first girl is Prue. And Katniss becomes overwhelmed with grief and anguish because she cannot believe that her little sister Prue, who she lives for and who it's her first time ever being entered, and who is so young and so innocent, has been selected to represent her district. So in a fit of panic, Katniss volunteers herself as the female representative of a district in place of her sister. And then you're kind of left kind of waiting, okay, it's going to be Katniss and Gale because there's this kind of romance between them. You're not quite sure. And that surely his name is going to come up and they're going to have to battle each other to the death. But instead, a young man called Peter Mlark gets nominated to represent the boys for the district. So that in itself, the beginning of the book is so kind of like, oh my God, my heart is beating in my chest. Like you're already drawn in to the characters right from the onset of the book. And then you go on the journey of Peter and Katniss, where you then realize that Peter is this guy that has been in love with Katniss for most of his life and kind of been loving her from a distance. And now he's faced with the horror of potentially having to kill or be killed by the love of his life. And, you go through their journey to the capital where they realize that there's a great disparity between the rich and the poor and between all the districts. And you journey on the alliances that are formed and the relationships that are built between the characters that have to participate in the Hunger Games. And the games itself is brutal. I mean, with certain characters die, and I found myself crying because I've become so invested in the characters. from the time that they were in the training camp to the time that they were in the Conopua, I don't even know how you pronounce it, whatever, this thing in the middle of the forest where the Hunger Games is held, where they have all the the weapons and resources that might be useful to the participants. And every time that one of the members or the participants dies, there is a cannon that goes off and a display of the dead and or the fallen and who they were, the districts that they came from, and so on. So it's a very heartwarming, heart-wrenching tale of dystopia and dysfunction and human beings reverting to their very basest nature. Can humanity prevail? The instinct of survival overtake everything else. There is some social commentary in there about the disparity between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, things like that. But this book was just a roller coaster, and some of the monsters that are described in the Hunger Games, like the monsters that are kind of created by the engineers of the capitals, or the geneticists in the capital, to kind of attack and pick up the districts. Some of them kind of go beyond imagination. There are certain things that don't translate in the movie, and one of them is the description of the hounds that are sent to basically devour and rip apart the contestants. And you realize that those hounds have human eyes, and they're basically the fallen contestants that have been re-engineered into these demonic killing beasts to go and kill off the remaining contestants. So certain things like that never translated in the movie, and other intricate details like, the mocking jays, how they could be friend and foe. They could give away your position as well as kind of help you find your way back. So you had to be careful any noises that you made around them, because they could alert the other contestants to your presence in a certain area. The relationship between Katniss and Peter, and how they developed a friendship first. And you could tell that they also developed a romance, but it was almost like a one-sided romance. So you weren't sure if Katniss actually really was developing feelings for Peter, or if she was doing it because she wanted to survive and she was playing the game, and their mentor Hamish was basically egging her on to, kind of make it soap opera-ish, basically, so that the watching populace would invest in her character and send her resources that would mean that she's more likely to survive. Anyway, it's an absolutely brilliant book. I've talked and given most of the plot away. My favorite character was Katniss. She was unrelenting, unyielding, and unapologetically a survivalist. She was very practical. There was nothing duplicitous about her nature. You knew that you were a means to an end for Katniss. And I just really liked the fact that her character remained consistent throughout the entire series. Her character remained consistent in that way. I found her sister Prudence, well, she was 12, so I should be forgiven in saying I found her to be weak and light. But she was a 12-year-old girl, and I had to constantly keep reminding myself that these were actually children, Katniss herself was, only 16, 17? So they were all children that were put in very adult situations. I really, really liked Gale, and I found myself constantly rooting for Gale to be the love interest that would win out, because I just really liked his practical nature and his caretaker attitude or caregiver attitude to his family. And I thought he was a very strong male lead, and he was kind of strong enough for Katniss, for a character like Katniss. I also enjoyed the multi-layered complexity that was President Snow. He reminds me of Donald Trump. I'm so sorry. The guy is so evil. I forgive any American Republicans that are watching this. Do forgive me, but but really, I just, if ever there was an evil president that had his own objectives, and his objective was to keep the districts in line so that they could continue to serve the capital. And he would do this by any means necessary, even by making all the districts watch their children kill each other. I thought he was a very, very, very good character. I loved Cinna and his assistants that were kind of making Katniss game ready. And I like the way that their characters developed. And I like the fact that you could tell that Cinna was a boy done good kind of character. So he must have come from one of the other districts. I think it was District 5 or something. And had kind of worked his way into the capital's inner social circle, political circle, as like, because he was such a good designer, but because he understood the struggle from the districts, he didn't lose his humanity. He didn't dehumanize the participants in the games by rendering it a TV show to try and make it palatable, which I think is what most of the people did, especially people closer to the capital, because it's described that the closer you get to the capital, the more likely you'll get volunteers. So Katniss, in the fact that she volunteered to go in place of her sister, was an anomaly, because normally like districts 1 and 2 and possibly 3 have volunteers that train all their lives to go and participate in the Hunger Games, and for the most part they win. So I like the fact that Cinna never really forgot that these were children killing children. And, you know, it wasn't just a TV show. He understood the message of power and dominance and dictatorship that was being delivered through the Hunger Games by the president. So yeah, I will give this book a 5 out of 5 because I loved it. It's the best YA fiction book. Okay, let me stop, because there is Harry Potter. So it's one of the best YA fiction books I've ever read. It's certainly one of the best books of a dystopian universe that I've ever read. And I absolutely loved it. I will give a review of The Mockingjay and Catching Fire going forward, but do let me know what you think. Please leave your comments down below. If you have any books that are similar to the Hunger Games that you would highly recommend, please leave your comments down below, because I would really like to know. Except Divergent. I've read the Divergent trilogy. So aside from those ones, please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you agree with me? Do you think there are better books out there? What did you think of the Hunger Games? I loved it. It was one of my favorite books ever. So I look forward to hearing from you. You could also drop me a message on Instagram or Twitter. My details are in the description down below. And also, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And until next time, bye.